Today's reading comes from Joshua chapter 2, verses 1 to 24, and I'm taking it from the Contemporary English Version. Joshua chose 2 men as spies and sent them from their camp at Acacia with these instructions. Go across the river and find out as much as you can about the whole region, especially about the town of Jericho. The 2 spies left the Israelite camp at Acacia and went to Jericho, where they decided to spend the night at the house of a prostitute named Rahab. But someone found out about them and told the king of Jericho. Some Israelite men came here tonight and they are spies. So the king sent soldiers to Rahab's house to arrest the spies. Meanwhile, Rahab had taken the men up to the flat roof of her house and had hidden them under some piles of flax plants that she had put there to dry. The soldiers came to her door and demanded, "Let us have the men who are staying at your house. They are spies." She answered them, "Some men did come to my house, but I didn't know where they had come from. They left about sunset, just before it was time to close the town gate. I don't know where they were going, but if you hurry, maybe you can catch them." The guards at the town gate let the soldiers leave Jericho, but they closed the gate again as soon as the soldiers went through. Then the soldiers headed toward the Jordan River to look for the spies at the place where people cross the river. Rahab went back up to her roof. The spies were still awake, so she told them, "I know that the Lord has given Israel this land. Everyone shakes with fear because of you. We heard how the Lord dried up the Red Sea so you could leave Egypt, and we heard how you destroyed Sihon and Og, those 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan. We know that the Lord your God rules heaven and earth, and we've lost our courage and our will to fight. Please promise me in the Lord's name that you will be as kind to my family as I have been to you. Do something to show that you won't let your people kill my father and mother and my brothers and sisters and their families." Rahab, the spies answered, "If you keep quiet about what we're doing, we promise to be kind to you when the Lord gives us this land. We pray that the Lord will kill us if we don't keep our promise." Rahab's house was built into the town wall, and one of the windows in her house faced outside the wall. She gave the spies a rope, showed them the window and said, "Use this rope to let yourselves down to the ground outside the wall. Then hide in the hills. The men who are looking for you won't be able to find you there. They'll give up and come back after a few days, and you can be on your way." The spies said, "You made us promise to let you and your family live. We will keep our promise, but you can't tell anyone why we were here. You must tie this red rope on your window when we attack, and your father and mother, your brothers, and everyone else in your family must be here with you. We'll take the blame if anyone who stays in this house gets hurt, but anyone who leaves your house will be killed, and it won't be our fault." "I'll do exactly what you said," Rahab promised. Then she sent them on their way and tied the red rope to the window. The spies hid in the hills for 3 days, while the king's soldiers looked for them along the roads. As soon as the soldiers gave up and returned to Jericho, the 2 spies went down into the Jordan Valley and crossed the river. They reported to Joshua and told him everything that had happened. "We're sure the Lord has given us the whole country," they said. "The people there shake with fear every time they think of us." This is the word of the Lord.
So what we have today are some real events, some real people, some 3,300 years ago, and Today, archaeologists argue about exactly which pile of rocks might have been the site of Jericho, but we know where it happened. We know the river that was crossed, and you can board a Qantas Airbus today, and tomorrow you can be strolling through the same fields and wet your feet in the same water as did those spies. I'd like to wish all of the mums a happy Mother's Day, and I'm pretty sure that each of you out there had a mum at some point. Today we want to say a very big thank you to mums who are present with us. A big thank you to the Lord for all that is good about the sacrifices, the humility and the hard work of mums who served us as we grew up. I'm very thankful to my mum, and mum, if you're watching this, we love you, I love you, and thank you. But anyway, let's get on with the sermon. I'd like to try and identify the main characters and the main theme from Joshua 2, and I hope that we'll follow along together and that God will speak to us and have an important message for us in our life. As we hear different people's responses, please remember that this was a matter of life and death for the people involved, and don't judge them too hastily. But let's start with the two spies, because clearly they're the central characters, right? And they were specifically commissioned by Joshua to scout out the promised land. They must have been pretty good swimmers, because they were over and back the Jordan River, a river that it took a miracle for the Israelites later to cross. We're told in the first two verses of Joshua 2, and I'm reading from yet a third version of the Bible today, so sorry for all the different versions going on. Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent two spies from Shittim. Go and look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went, entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. Just briefly, what do you think makes a successful spy? I won't take answers from the floor, but I was thinking, the ability to blend in, to maintain your disguise for a long time, to win the trust of important people, all while secretly remaining loyal to your own team. These are the things I come to. And so if we were to rate them from 0 to 10, where 10 is like James Bond always comes out on top and number 1 is Maxwell Smart or something, what are you giving them? Yeah, a 1 from Andrew up the front. I think we agree they're pretty useless spies, are they not? It hasn't even been one day and they are in a total mess. The enemy king knows who they are, where they are, and their purpose or mission. They've lost the plot by staying in a prostitute's house. It's a morally ambiguous situation. Do these spies really conduct themselves with confident faith and represent God's power and character? Not really. Let's be honest, they really are hopeless. These men do not deserve the gadgets and black sport cars of Agent 007. They are not qualified for the theme music of Mission Impossible. They should go to the bottom of the pile. This could only be cast as a comedy. And yet, Joshua 2 is not a comedy, is it? So clearly, we have chosen the wrong characters to focus on. Surely it would not be the other men in this story. We've got the enemy king and his messengers or soldiers who hear about the spies and chase them around the place. They're tricked up by a lady. They're sent on a fool's errand. Ultimately, they're unsuccessful. But in these cases, there is no character development. We find out later in the book of Joshua that they are somewhat proud and arrogant. They feel invincible. And so, ladies and gentlemen, today we must conclude that the meaning of Joshua 2 is not to be found in these strong arms and thick skulls. So maybe a woman will save the day for us. What do you think about the character of Rahab? Just imagine that you were one of the king's men and you were carrying a lie detector when you knocked on her door. In fact, let's do it. We've been a bit childlike today. What I want you to do is every time you hear a lie, I want you to say beep. Okay, can you do that for me? All right. So they're knocking on the door and they ask her a question. And I'm reading now from Joshua 2 verse 4 and 5. She said, "Yes, the men came to me." That's true. but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, the men left. I don't know where they went. Go after them quickly, you may catch up with them. Okay, right, I think we get the picture. Lies, lies and more lies. Okay, so let's think about Rahab some more. How do you think her neighbours might feel if they knew about these spies? Here is a woman ready to betray her own people. She is a traitor, right? And well, she is a prostitute too. And we're not the kind of judgy Christians that think we're all self-righteous and we can look down on other people for their moral failings. But still, we must acknowledge her career choice was one of the worst. And so without doubt, she's been instrumental in breaking up marriages and seducing and trashing the lives of young men. This is not a pretty picture, let's be honest. And I'm really hoping this sermon gets better soon. Happy Mother's Day, all you mums out there. But even Rahab's motives were not pure. She's living in a world of fear, and this is self-preservation. She is quite willing to beg and bargain and blackmail our lives for your lives, they say. And so all of this is true of Rahab. But it's not everything. She is a liar, a traitor, a marriage wrecker. She is scared, but her story is not ultimately about those things. Ultimately, she has something brilliant to teach us, and this one thing trumps all of the others. Let's fast forward to the end of Joshua 2, and we'll talk about the final report. Remember those hopeless spies? Well, they do make it back, and they report to Joshua, and in verse 24, this is what they say to Joshua: "The Lord has surely given us the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us." It's one of those reports you make to your boss when you know that everything has gone horribly wrong, but through some miraculous event and by forces completely out of your own control, the mission succeeded. And so you hastily present the good news, you leave out the inconvenient details, and you go home very glad that it's all over. At least that's my career. I don't know what your career was like. Now, it's not Father's Day, so we won't dwell any further on those themes, except for the last three words. Because of us. All the people are melting in fear because of us. I'd like you to look with me at what Rahab actually said. She is, of course, their actual source, their primary source. And in Joshua 2, verse 9 to 11, "I know that the Lord has given this land to you, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you." Now, if they'd stopped there, the report would have been perfectly accurate. But she continues, verse 10. "We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted and everyone's courage failed because of you." Wait for it. Everyone's courage failed because of you, for the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. That, my friends, is the meaning of Joshua 2. That the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. The Lord, our God, is incredible. That's why hearts melted in fear. That's why Jericho is ultimately overthrown without so much as a battering ram, a sword swing, or an arrow flying. And Rahab, God bless her, is the one who gets this and who acts on it. Those lousy, rotten, spineless spies didn't even bother recording her most important words and passing them on to their commander. Instead, these gutless wonders gave the impression that they were the cause of all of this fear and intimidation. Because of us, they said. Not for the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. And it is this fundamental reality that Rahab gets and responds to. That is a magnificent theme for Mother's Day. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you'll spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. And so, in God's plan, this is why she receives mercy and salvation. And over a few pages to Joshua 6, the spies bring out her whole family. And we're told Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. And she lived in the promised land. And they all lived happily ever after. Only that's not the end of her story, as you may know. 1,300 years later, God wrote a twist into the end of her story. And it's there in Matthew chapter 1. I probably won't read it all out to you. But we find out that Rahab is the mother of Boaz. That's not right. Is that right? Let me actually read it to you. Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Yep. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth, another legend. Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. So she becomes royalty among God's people. Fast forward a few verses. Eliud, the father of Eliezer, the father of Mathan, Mathan, the father of Jacob, Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. That's more than royalty. The Lord chose this woman, Rahab, and gave her the honour of this place in the family of Jesus Christ. Out of 42 generations, only 4 women are noted in this gospel record of Jesus' family, and Rahab's name is there. Now, we don't have to ask ourselves too much why she's there, because the scriptures speak yet again and again. In Hebrews 11, by faith the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after the people had marched around them for 7 days. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. Rahab did such a small thing alongside of the Exodus and the fall of Jericho, and yet it was not a small thing because of her faith. Her faith in the Lord our God, who is God in heaven above and the earth below. That's huge. And James writes of her, in the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction? As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. And so this magnificent lady has the honour of a place in Jesus' family, has a place in the Hebrews roll call of faith, and Jesus' own brother James says she exemplifies true faith. What a woman. Now, I've got this whole speech written out for Mother's Day, and I recognise that there's a whole lot of mums in the room, and that for many of you, most of the hard work's done. For some of us, there's still some hard work to go. Love you, Michaela. Sorry, David. I think that came out wrong. I'm sure that came out wrong. You might be past the teenage phase, right? You might not have too many cars sitting in your driveway. We don't either. But mistakes will be made. We love you, Michaela. One less as of yesterday. You may feel overwhelmed, you may struggle. But if you walk with him, God will be with you. And he'll be with you wherever you are in your parenting journey and wherever you are in life's journey. You'll be let down and disappointed sometimes, but the Lord of heaven and earth will never fail you. You can declare his praises even when others mute it or take credit for it themselves. Like Rahab, you can choose him above all other loyalties. You can build your family, you can build your friendship upon the knowledge of him, and you will not be disappointed. Whether you are a mother, father, spiritual aunt, an uncle, grandparent, or even a child, Rahab exemplifies the winning combination of faith in the Lord of heaven and earth. Will you stand with Rahab? Will you stand with courage in the Lord? Will you fear God and not man? Will you speak out his praises truly? Let his salvation be known to the ends of the earth, and let it shine most brightly for the sake of your family and friends. Happy Mother's Day, and the Lord bless you.